We can start now.
Yeah, we can start.
So this will turn up volume. Today's topic is brand positioning. Brand positioning or positioning is an important topic in marketing management because it occupies a specific place in the minds of customers within target markets. Most of the brands have a specific positioning. For example, some brands position themselves as luxury brands, some brands position themselves as premium brands, some brands like Pepsi and Coke, they position themselves as mass brands. So the different way of positioning it, even in the car segment, Volvo position themselves as a safe car brand. So likewise, some other car brands position themselves as a brand known for engineering and technology. Some of them position themselves focusing on mileage. So likewise, every brand has their own unique way of positioning, or some of them try their best to position themselves. And it is important, it is an important concept to beat the competition because competition is intensifying. When competition in a market is increasing every day, managers need to implement strategy to overcome the competition and to beat the competition. For example, brands should be perceived as different from their competitors by the potential consumers, because consumers or potential consumers should perceive your brand as only if they believe and perceive that there is something that they will get or they will derive if they buy a brand. There is another concept called effective positioning. So effective positioning, or your positioning becomes effective only if your brand has credibility, or if your brand or brand managers can create credibility and believability. And that means there has to be a unique selling proposition, there has to be a unique proposition. And you should be also able to build brand as a durable brand over time, because brand equity will help you to build a durable brand. Otherwise, it will be a perishable brand. So you need to think about brand equity and creating mass prestige to make sure that your brand is sustainable or your brand is durable over time. Positioning approaches, some alternatives: specific product features, benefits, problem solution or needs, specific usage occasions, user category. Otherwise, you can also talk about product class disassociation and trying to compete or trying to say what this brand has advantages compared to the alternative brands, because there's always alternatives for consumers. You talk about your potential consumers or your own consumers. They always think about alternatives. So why should they think about your brand compared to your competing brands? So this you need to always keep in mind. You need to look at benefits of, you need to talk about the benefits of why they should buy your brands, how you can meet their needs, and so on. There is a paradigm called classical positioning paradigm. This simply means that positioning as a process by which a company markets its products or brand to occupy a distinctive position in consumers' mind. distinctive position in consumers' mind. This is an important point. How do you create a distinctive position in consumers' mind? Because you're actually playing with consumer psychology. When you're dealing with consumers and their psychology, you are also trying to create distinctive position in their mind. So in other words, I can say positioning derives from a holistic set of consumer impressions that can be influenced by everything from a product features, from product features, or from a product's features to its price. So which means it is a positioning derives from a holistic set of consumers' impressions or consumers' preferences. Consumers have their own preferences, tastes, and impressions, and product managers need to look at all these aspects. Product managers also need to decide the price based on different impressions of consumers. So these influences are created by specific product features, Captain Cook salt, benefits, problem solution, or needs. Kellogg's, when Kellogg trying to position themselves, they talk about their benefits, and they also talk about how they solve the problems or how they meet the needs of consumers. And so one has to understand as a marketing manager, managers need to understand about user categories. There are different professional categories and different categories. And there is also, for example, if you look at the detergent brands, detergents, when you want to buy detergents or washing powder for for washing machine, so you have different brands such as Rin versus Tide, and so consumers will tend to compare what is better, Rin is better, Tide is better, or any other Ariel is better, or Surf is better, or some other brand is better. They will always look at that. And they will look at, same way if you look at face wash, suppose if you want to buy a face wash, and you will compare different face wash brands. And you might also compare face wash with the soap in case soap is much cheaper. So product class association and product class disassociations are also important dimensions in brand management and brand positioning. These are important concepts. When we talk about classical positioning, there is a challenge for classical positioning. This is mainly because one of the challenge is to identify a desirable position in the market. And second is to develop a marketing plan to reach and dominate this desired position versus the competitors. Yeah. So you need to develop a marketing plan to reach and dominate uh, multiple segments of your customers and to create desired position compared to your competitors. Otherwise, your competitors will emerge as leaders. You will be losers. So you have to emerge as a leader, as a market leader with maximum market share. That requires developing a marketing plan. Classical positioning requires a marketing plan. Without marketing plans, you may not succeed. When you think about classical positioning, you have to ask the question how long a company can sustain competitive advantage developed like this. How do you sustain competitive advantage? For example, if a company has competitive disadvantage, how do you overcome that competitive disadvantage, and how do you overcome that and can achieve competitive advantage? Because if you achieve competitive advantage, you can survive and sustain in long run. Otherwise, your company or your brand is likely to be short-lived. alternative approach for positioning. Yeah. So if you look at, if you search for different ways for differentiation from the category as a whole and not from specific competitors within the category, you might need to think about alternative approaches for positioning. You have to study how your competing brands are positioning and derive intelligent inputs from their ideas and their marketing strategies, and then decide how you can position. It is important to compare competing brands and their positioning strategies. There are a couple of positioning approaches. One is called disruptive positioning approaches, disruptive positioning approach. And under disruptive positioning approach, there are two types of positioning. First one is called reverse positioning, and second one is called breakaway positioning. Reverse positioning means a company creates differentiation by offering a value proposition that defies both competitive and consumption trends in the category. And the second type of disruptive positioning is breakaway positioning. In the case of breakaway positioning, a company or a firm creates differentiation from its category by borrowing association from a different category. This has an eventual effect of stretching the boundaries of its own category. That's why it's called as breakaway positioning. For more details, you can also refer to the textbook. And there is another disruptive positioning approach, which is called stealth positioning. Here, a firm completely disassociates its product from its category by adopting an alternative category altogether. It's called stealth positioning. Reverse positioning. When we talk about reverse positioning, what we need to understand is a firm creates differentiation by offering a value proposition that defies both competitive and consumption trends in the category. So that is called reverse positioning, which means a firm creates differentiation by offering a value proposition that defies both competitive and consumption trends. That's called reverse. That is defined as reverse positioning. And reverse positioning can be explained this way too. For example, a firm decides not to offer its customers the expected value proposition offered by most of the competitors. Thus, it separates or distances itself from the top end of the market. So that is another way of defining reverse positioning. Reverse positioning can be also explained this way. For example, reverse positioning at the low end of the market, supplementing its stripped down value proposition with a few carefully selected attributes that would typically be associated with a highly augmented offering, which attributes that are traditionally unheard or when it comes to low end layers. So it can also be reverse positioning at the low end of the market can be explained this way. There are a couple of videos on YouTube on reverse positioning. If you want to learn more about the example, just type reverse positioning on YouTube and get those videos where some of the speakers explain reverse positioning with examples. So one example of how IKEA is positioning is IKEA is distancing from top line competitors. IKEA is a Swedish brand in the furniture segment. They deliberately eliminated value proposition of top line players. And if you go to IKEA stores, you hardly get service assistants, or there are no sales boys or sales girls to help you in the stores. So which means limited in-store assistance from the staff members, and IKEA adopted self-service philosophy. Even assembling and installation of furniture, customer has to do by themselves. So they don't even send any staff members to the customer's home to install or assemble furniture. Customers have to do everything. So, and IKEA offers no delivery services. Consumers have to transport their purchases and assemble the furniture themselves. And point number three is offered variety in stores. And IKEA also offers limited variety in stores. So these are some of the features that distinguishes IKEA or distancing IKEA from top line competitors in the furniture industry. IKEA also supplemented its stripped down value proposition with a set of attributes that consumers had never before associated with a low-end player in the market. Yeah, so this is another way of looking at it. And another example is children's daycare. In the case of children's daycare, beautifully designed company operated daycare center for kids when parents shopped. So this is also a part of IKEA strategy. When you go to IKEA, you get some space for carrying the kids. There is some place there's a park, small artificial park where kids can play when parents are doing shopping, that kind of facility. And IKEA also comes out with food court, high quality and delightful cafe that served delicacies for customers. And IKEA stores also has housewares, toys, etc. that were not available at other furniture retailers. So it's not just furniture, they offer other related products. And such benefits, when you talk about IKEA, such benefits constitute a huge deviation from what consumers were familiar with, a low-cost furniture provider. IKEA is not as low-cost furniture provider, but some associated services IKEA offers within their shopping premises. However, installation, self-service, no installation help, self-service, self-pickup, all those kind of things to be done by the customers in IKEA. So that's how they position themselves. Breakaway positioning. It is considered as an example for breakaway positioning. And if you look at based on IKEA's example, you can also define or redefine breakaway positioning this way. Firm introduces a product that is deliberately designed to reach outside of its category, borrow the identity of a different category with the objective of getting consumers to mentally categorize the product differently than they otherwise would. A breakaway identity of a different product is thus one that breaks down traditional category brand category boundaries. Now the question comes, why breakaway positioning? Breakaway positioning provides a different way from a firm to distance itself from many of the consumption trends associated with the category. It provides different way for firm to sidestep competitive trends in the category. Firm does not try to compete head-to-head against category incumbents. By breaking down the category boundaries, it seeks to communicate that it is offering a different kind of product altogether. Yeah, so these are some characteristic features of why breakaway positioning is important. Another example for breakaway positioning is Swatch. Swatch is a Swiss watch brand from Switzerland. And There are two categories of traditional watchmakers or watch markets. Two types of watches. One is jewelry type watches, so which can be called as Swiss watches or watch as jewelry. Second is functional watches. Watch brands such as Timex, they falls in the category of functional watch. And for example, Swiss watch came into the market in 1983, positioned itself as neither of these two subcategories. Instead, completely different category, the fashion accessory category. And when Swatch was introduced as a watch brand, Swatch did not want to position as a jewelry brand, neither as a jewelry brand nor positioned as a functional brand. Instead, Swatch believed in breakaway positioning. Swatch positioned themselves as a totally different category brand, which is fashion watch brands. So they position themselves as a fashion accessory. So people who wanted a little bit more fashion than the traditional jewelry or traditional functional watch, they all went for buying Swatch because the breakaway positioning of Swatch or Swatch managers looked at it or promoted it as a playful brand in the fashion segment to capture a mood, a moment, and a season. Breakaway positioning Swatch continues. Yeah, so if you look at the picture, you can see how Swatch watch looks like. It's different from functional Timex. It's different from jewelry type watches. This is how Swatch is positioning with the breakaway positioning approach. The case of Swatch watch is a classic case of breakaway positioning because this type of fashion watches were not many. Watches were either in the jewelry segment or in the functional segment. Most of the well-known brands in the watch markets. Yeah, there is another concept called stealth positioning. I explained this partly. So here, a firm deliberately adopts a covert approach. The firm conceals or disguises the true nature of its product by affiliating it with different category. Try to take advantage of consumers' lack of knowledge about what the product actually is and what the firm's long-term intentions of the product are by diverting consumers' attention away from the product's true nature. These are different ways of defining or explaining stealth positioning. Why stealth positioning? Maybe the entire product category is tainted or problematic in some way, and negative psychological aspects associated with the category, which may result in consumers rejecting the product. However, by disguising the product within a different category, the firm tried to sneak the product into the market and thereby overcome consumer resistance. So, stealth positioning, one example is Sony Aibo. Sony faced the challenge of introducing personal robots into consumer households. When Sony was trying to introduce personal robots into households, they faced the challenge. The goal was a sophisticated personal assistant robot that could perform household tasks. For example, monitor room temperature, turn the lights on and off, remotely control electrical appliances, and perform everyday chores. So in 1999, Sony's existing technology was not yet ready for this. Artificial intelligence technology was immature for this when they were thinking about it. And software was limited and buggy. And robotic hardware was mechanically crude and unstable. However, Sony believed that this particular category had a lot of psychological baggage, skepticism, and another point was skepticism. Consumers would be skeptical about the category, and they were also thinking about how a household robot could add value to their life. So, for example, science fiction to real life, how how artificial robots can add value to their life. Many consumers were skeptic or were doubtful. So, what Sony did was, Sony realized that stealth positioning is important for Sony to survive or to succeed. Sony realized that the consumers would be intimidated by the idea of robots, and it was also too complex idea at that time, and it was a technically sophisticated. Many people that it is technically sophisticated for them to buy. They had high expectations, and Sony followed unorthodox marketing approach. What is that unorthodox marketing approach? Sony decided to tout the usefulness of its first generation robot, designed to provide nothing but companionship and occasional entertainment value. Yeah, so this is what they did to motivate consumers to buy their first generation robot, which they targeted households. And the company's reasoning was that if a product looked like Star Wars, consumers would expect it to behave like C3PO. However, if product was positioned as a pet device, would be able to get away with things a robot could not. Yeah, so this is Sony was trying to do. Yeah, so this is the picture of Sony Aibo robot, which they introduced in the household segment to help the households with different purposes. And it served multiple purposes. It even measured the room temperature. And they positioned with the intelligent positioning approach, stealth positioning approach. So you need to have either breakaway positioning or stealth positioning, something that kind of unique way of positioning so that you can succeed. Thank you very much.